Hello and welcome to Paul on Politics. With summer officially over and the start of the new school term looming, perhaps it's no coincidence that education has been under the spotlight this week. We'll be looking at claims that some high-performing schools are routinely ejecting sixth form students who don't make the grade. And are we paying over the odds for school academy chief executives? Revelations that some school leaders in Kent are on six-figure salaries and enjoy the use of expensive cars has sparked a debate about education fat cats. And could an old Etonian with a very posh voice really be the next Conservative Party leader? On the sofa today to discuss these issues are Rochester and Strood MP Kelly Tolhurst and Matt Ramsden, the editor of the Medway Messenger. Thanks to both of them for joining us. But first, a row over claims by Labour that the Conservative-run Medway Council has wasted money on the Battle of Medway. The costs of the 10-day events came in at £389,000. So was it a waste of money or did it help the local economy? Kelly, did it help the economy of the Medway towns, or are these things a waste of money where money is needed elsewhere?
Well, I think with all councils, they receive an amount of funding each year, and it's down to the local decision makers how that is spent. In Medway, we've got a really strong history of putting on free events for the local population and for visitors to the area. And really, I believe that the Battle of Medway was a historic local event to really showcase what our maritime history here in the Medway town is about, which often gets forgotten.
But councils are always complaining they're short of money, and here's one council spending quite a lot on an event which didn't necessarily improve services for residents.
Absolutely, but we could say that about all events that we put on here in Medway. You know, we could argue that is it worth having two Dickens festivals in the Medway towns every year, when the link between Dickens and Rochester is, you know, some might say is slightly, tenable.
Matt Ramsden, what do you think your readers think of this kind of money? Are they split, or are they saying they agree with Labour?
I think the vast majority will probably agree with Labour, but I think the devil's in the detail, as with most things, in that so much money has been spent on the Battle of Medway, but how much money has it brought in? And in terms of tourism and sort of people wanting to come.
But these things always need to be measured. So, you know, where's the proof? You know, it's easy to say, well, we had a lot of people in, but, you know, where's the kind of analysis that backs up that assertion?
I mean, that would be for the council to do, but I suppose it will be with shops, B&Bs, hotels, and that sort of thing. Have they seen a rise in their profits? But I would say, Paul, that it is right that I think Labour asked the question. You've got a time of cutbacks across the board, sure start, public sector freezes. I think it's right that the question's asked how much was spent.
Kelly, would you like to see some transparency around this figure and in terms of the economic dividend that's alleged the Medway towns benefited from? Because we often hear this about, you know, big events, don't we? That they're going to bring in lots of visitors, and lots of visitors means lots of spending in the town. But, you know, where's the evidence? Yeah,
no, absolutely. Everything that's spent at a local level should be assessed and transparent. I haven't seen the actual figures for the total costs, so I can't comment on the actual final costs of the event. But what I can tell you is that we had lots of foreign visitors come in. I was particularly involved with regards to the river element of it, and we had hundreds of Dutch visitors that came into the Medway towns, particularly for this event. But it has showcased, and actually some of the local people I've spoken to actually didn't realise some of the history that relates to the Medway and how these towns are formed.
Well, education, information, entertainment, all in one thing, Matt. You know, that's a persuasive argument, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is right that councils, be it Medway or other councils, do put on events that raise a profile. I mean, I was a bit puzzled by the whole theme of it, the Battle of Medway, because it seemed to be a big loss that we were celebrating.
Maybe you've learned something from the event, even over 10 days.
Yeah, and I went to the opening of it, and there were plenty of Dutch guests there.
Yeah, OK, well, let's move on to another issue which has been dominating the headlines this week. Just a week or so after students in Kent celebrated their GCSE and A-level results, there have been renewed claims that some secondary schools are encouraging poor-performing sixth form students to leave. The spotlight has fallen on some grammar schools with the suggestion they're weeding out underachievers so their position in league tables is not affected. Here's Josie Hannett.
In the past few weeks, teenagers across Kent have found out the grades they've received for their GCSE and A-level results. There may have been some confusion for Year 11s as some of their results were in numbers rather than the usual A-star to C grades, as the new system's being phased in. But schools in Kent have been hitting the headlines for different reasons this week, after a campaign group says more should be done to monitor whether lower performing students are being unfairly kicked out. The Kent Education Network, which opposes grammar schools, says Kent County Council should oversee what policies secondary schools have adopted over sixth form students who did poorly in AS exams in Year 12. Claims that some of Kent's top secondary schools encourage underperforming students to leave are coming under scrutiny.
Kelly Tolhurst, it can't be right, can it, that schools are seeking to weed out underachievers, and we've seen this issue kind of explode this week with a court case involving another school outside Kent, but the idea is surely one you disapprove of.
Oh, absolutely. These reports are very worrying, particularly if it's happening in Medway. As the constituency that I represent being within Medway, I haven't had any parents yet come to me about it, but I would welcome any parents who have had this issue at local level do coming forward. But it's completely unacceptable.
Shouldn't the government be intervening in this sort of thing? I mean, in a sense, you could say it's a flaw in the academy model in some senses, because the line of accountability is straight up to central government and there's no local oversight.
Well, no, there isn't, but there is central oversight through the Regional Schools Commissioner and through the DfE.
Yeah, a Quango no one's ever heard of and wasn't elected.
Well, absolutely quite, but from an MP's point of view, it's actually the line of communication is quite clear, because when I have an issue with an academy locally, I go straight to the Regional Schools Commissioner, and he is the person that I expect to give me answers to how and what will be done about that school. But also we can go directly to the ministers and ask direct questions about what's happening in our schools.
Have you done that?
I haven't yet had I haven't had any reports in Medway about grammar schools or secondary schools for that matter where this has been happening. So it's not a particular issue that I've raised, but if it is, it's something that I'll be very concerned about. We have seen, I've been made aware where some schools can try and not necessarily give all the options to young people when they're going into secondary school. And what
I want to bring Matt in quickly.
But, sorry.
Matt, parents rely on the kind of integrity of schools to do what's best for their children, and this suggests they're doing what's best for their position in the league tables rather than children.
Well, I think, Paul, that this represents everything that's gone wrong with some education in this country. These academies, some of them are just laws unto themselves. When we deal with them, they'll refuse to comment on what should be open, transparent policies and how they deal with it. And I think it's just a case of a school acting as a business, not as a place of education.
That's an interesting point, isn't it, Kelly? I mean, what would you say to that suggestion that they're a law unto themselves and they're operating in a very much more business-like way these days?
Yeah, I think it's a management model. Academies are a management model. The reality of it is they still get the same funding as a maintained school. It's a management model. There are flaws with all systems. However, I would disagree that all academies are a law unto themselves, because actually there are some really good examples. I have had concerns about some academy chains in the past, not necessarily even in Medway or in Kent. But it is right that we challenge. And the way this model works, it is easier for academies to take certain decisions.
Wouldn't it be
but
better?
The accountability is still there.
Wouldn't it be better for locally elected representatives to have oversight of academies rather than some, I don't even know where the Regional Schools Commissioner operates from?
Yeah, I think that we've had this. I mean, originally, I'll be quite straight. When the Academies programme was first announced, I was against it. I wanted local oversight, but when I was portfolio holder for education improvement at Medway, I found that the influence and sometimes the speed of which local authorities could act, because of the system, the current system now, was really hard. So actually, in some instances, having that, removing that accountability from local authority and making it directly with central government was easier to get things done in a slightly quicker way. So, and as an MP, it's easier for me to get the answers to questions I have about secondary schools and primaries.
Easier for you, but maybe not for parents. Matt, let's move on to this other related issue about academies and multi-academy chains operating in this business-like way. and offering, you know, quite substantial six-figure salaries, not Football League transfer millions,
No,
but,
yes.
you know, nevertheless, quite a lot of money being on offer to some of these academy heads. Right or not? Are they worth the money?
Well, I mean, you've got to ask yourself, should a head teacher who's in charge of an academy trust be earning more than the Prime Minister, earning more than a lot of senior people with very great responsibilities? I don't have a problem with people being paid well if they've got a responsible job. But I look at some of these salaries that we're talking about with the academies, and I think, well, if that money's going to them, why is it not going to the kids?
But
and the facilities?
you know, the academies will say, well, they're busy people. They've got oversight over lots of different institutions. You know, they have to be. You have to pay this amount of money to get the right people.
I think if you're earning north of £100,000, that's fair enough, isn't it? I mean, anything above that is taking it.
What about the idea of a cap on salaries?
Well, I'm clear on this. At the end of the day, it's outcomes and performance. And you know, we could argue about exactly what the right fee would be, but it is true that some of these academy CEOs have quite a lot of responsibility across large geographical areas. However, it should all be about. That seems
odd as well, doesn't it?
Well,
so
it should.
Some chain operating in Kent and covering Sussex.
Well, that's right. But they are sort of mini. You know, there's some of the large academy chains that aren't yet operating in Medway. But it should be driven around outcomes, and where academies are not performing and people are on large salaries, it's completely out of order if that is the case. If they're not delivering for our young people. And again, that should be challenged, and rightfully so.
Well, we've got to end this particular lesson now. The bell's rung. So when we come back, we'll be looking at whether the Prime Minister was right to say she intended to lead her party into the next general election. Don't go away. Welcome back to Paul on Politics, live on KMTV. Now, Theresa May has rather alarmed some in her party by saying she intends to lead the Conservatives into the next general election. It has inevitably led to a fresh bout of introspection in the party. What do voters think of it all? We've been to Rochester to find out.
She ought to go as soon as possible.
Give her a chance, because she lost the last general election simply because there were so many promises from the Labour Party, which would be impossible for them to see through, in my opinion.
If I'm truthful, she wouldn't be my choice in the first place, so nor would her government or her ideas. But so, how long should she stay? If the Conservatives are going to be in, then why shouldn't she stay? But I'd rather see the Conservatives out, frankly.
Until she's pushed, probably. I think she'll be pushed eventually. I liked her to start with, but like a lot of other people, we've sort of lost interest in her, really.
I think as long as she's prepared to work and for the people to like her.
I think she's getting tired. She might not be able to make such decisions.
As long as she's supported by the Conservative Party. As she loses the support, she will stand aside for somebody else. But at the moment, she's doing a good job, and it's very difficult for her.
Kelly Tolhurst, the Conservatives love a bit of debate about the next leader, don't it? It's like a scratch, an itch that they love to scratch. Why do they always do this? Why does your party love leadership arguments so much?
Well, I have to say, the only people who seem to be having this debate is the media, actually, because it's been
it's always the media.
No, but it's quite interesting because prior to recess, these debates were going on, and it's not what was seen on the ground up at Parliament, I have to say. I mean, and I mean, I can tell you from my point of view, I do support Theresa May. I was one of the people that backed her in the early days when she stood for leadership, and you know, I still have the opinion that she's the right person for us at the moment.
You don't think she's damaged goods still?
I think Theresa May has got a lot to offer, and with her experience and the strength of her character, and I do believe she's the right person at this moment in time, especially with the Brexit negotiations.
Well, that's the political view, Matt.
Yeah.
What's the view from the street?
That's my view.
That's Kelly's view. What do you think? I mean, is she compromised by her failure at the general election?
It's a strange phenomenon, this whole thing with Theresa May, because before the election she could do no wrong.
Yeah.
Now she called the election and nobody thought Labour would do so well. Nobody. Jeremy Corbyn didn't think they did that well. Everyone was predicting a Conservative majority, quite a sizable one. So the fact it's gone wrong.
Even the pollsters got it wrong.
Well, indeed,
Again.
but they always do. But I think she hasn't changed as a person, or her competencies haven't changed. It's just that a lot of Conservative members are obviously disappointed with how it's gone, and the knives have been sharpened, and I'd watch out for party season.
Well, we'll have to wait for that in October. But in the meantime, if Theresa May decided not to go on, as another Prime Minister once said, who might step into her kitten heels?
I'd say Jeremy Corbyn, because he just, for someone my age, he's quite an appealing person. His ideas are very appealing to someone of a younger age, university fees and stuff like that.
I think Boris is too flamboyant and everything else, but I really don't know. I can't see anybody that's got the sort of the strength of character to do it.
We're certainly not the Labour Party.
Well, Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, because they would put money back into services that are all getting cut left, right and centre.
Well, David Davis has been around for a long time. I think possibly him.
Well, Mr. ReesMogg, I think to a certain extent is a possibly good choice. He's consistent and has always been consistent. He doesn't bend with the wind.
Corbyn. Yeah.
Kelly's on us. Who's your favourite if Theresa May has an accident involving a bus?
It's a difficult one. I don't have a favourite. And actually, my belief is I think the next leader of the Conservative Party won't necessarily be somebody that we're thinking of today. We have got time before that happens, and so I don't know at the moment, and that's the honest answer. Yeah,
no, it sounds like you're saying there's a kind of a younger generation of MPs who might surprise a few people in the face of the kind of speculation about some of the old stages, as it were.
Absolutely, there's some talent within the Conservative Party. People were elected in 2015. We had a new intake of MPs in 2007. This year, just in a couple of months ago. I think it could be a surprise, but I will tell you, at the moment, there is not one person that is shining for me amongst all the others in place of someone like Theresa May.
Matt, that's an interesting point, isn't it? That actually sometimes leaders' competitions end up with the unexpected candidates. Right. David Cameron being a classic example when he fought against David Davis, and everyone thought David Davis was going to win.
Sure. I think the Conservative Party have got a long history of the favourite never winning in leadership elections. I think Theresa May was the first favourite in a long time to actually come out on top when she did.
Yeah, and she had no one contending with her.
No, they conspired to shoot themselves in the head, didn't they? Every single candidate.
No, I know Callie's going to say it's not in the realms of possibility, but Jeremy Corbyn still enjoying some popularity. Is it realistic to think of him as a future Prime Minister?
No, I don't think so. I think he's done very well. He's done a lot better than anyone gave him a chance to do.
So why do you not see him as a potential Prime Minister?
Okay, I think he's got a groundswell of support amongst traditional Labour voters and the young. I'm not sure that'll stand up again. I think Middle England's not ready for Jeremy Corbyn still.
And Kent is obviously always regarded as a key battleground, isn't it? And yet, they returned one MP at the general election, which is nowhere near where they need to be.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think Keir Starmer is making a good job of putting himself forward.
What about a woman candidate? Isn't it about time Labour had a woman leading the party?
Well, Yvette Cooper is very competent, and I was chatting to a Conservative politician not so long ago, and I say, who do you most fear in terms of a Labour leader? And they said Yvette Cooper, but one they'd really battle with.
Okay, well, we'll see in a couple of years' time, maybe before that. One unlikely candidate is the MP Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's becoming something of a cult phenomenon in politics. One man from Gillingham has started a petition backing the old Etonian to be the next PM. Is he really a contender, though?
Have you ever heard of him? I think I recognise him, but no, I don't know his name.
ReesMogg, eh? Not my cup of tea either, I'm afraid. Not my cup of tea at all, Mr. ReesMogg. No. Nor Mr. Davis, nor Brexit. No.
No, I've got a clue who it is.
Do you know who this man is?
That's Mr. ReesMogg, is it not? Yes, I know of him. I haven't heard particularly good things about him. I'm not informed enough to have one opinion one way or the other. I tend to take people as I find them.
Do you know who that is?
I don't know his name, but he's been in the press a lot because of his large family that he's got. But I don't know his name.
Yeah, ReesMogg, yeah. Yeah, a good laugh, a hell of a character, but and a clever guy, but politically wise, I don't know. But I like him, he makes me laugh, so that's something, isn't it?
Kelly, can he really be a contender?
He could be. He could be in the future.
And what do you think his qualities are?
Well, Jacob.
If you think he's got qualities.
Well, no, he's a great guy. He's a great MP. He is extremely knowledgeable and he's extremely bright and has got many ideas. I'm not sure whether it would be something that he particularly wants to do, but then, of course, I haven't asked him. But I expect he'd be overwhelmed by the support.
If he stood a chance, the ultimate job in politics is being Prime Minister, isn't it? Surely he'd seize the opportunity.
Maybe. But I mean, I have to say that I know that he does support Theresa May at this time, so I'm sure that he wouldn't come out and say that he was genuinely standing at this time.
Matt, is this a bit of kind of a summer silly season story? Mogmania has been the hashtag, or is there kind of? Do you think he's capable of doing the job?
No.
Right. Well, that's the kind of answer you never get from politicians.
Let me explain. Paul.
Explain
it. I think he's a bit of a media phenomena, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and I'm sure he is all the things that Kelly has said. And he's funny, he's witty, he speaks in Latin, he's quirky.
I mean, one thing that strikes me about him is that he's light because he tells it how he sees it, so he doesn't dress anything up in PR spin and stuff like that. And that's what people like about him.
Yeah, but in terms of being a Prime Minister, what experience does he bring to the role? That's the key thing. And a bit like Boris Johnson, everyone likes them on a personal level, but when they're in office and they're making the big calls, what experience do they actually have? What personal qualities do they have?
And
that's the bottom line.
Can he make the big calls, that are needed in politics, or is he too kind of academic for that?
Well, I think most leaders, I mean, David Cameron didn't have a big role prior to becoming leader of the Conservative Party, and we know Jeremy Corbyn has never led anything, and he's leading the Labour Party. So
well, you could say that about David Cameron when he became leader.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I think at the end of the day, people have opportunities to. See, it's very difficult for MPs because we see the candidates more at close quarters. So we do see more of their qualities maybe than the public does at first.
Time is against us, so I'm going to have to wrap up now. But quick, who's going to be the next Prime Minister, Matt?
Next Prime Minister, it depends which party we're talking about.
That's into politics. Kelly, who's going to be the next Prime Minister?
Oh,
well. They don't know.
No.
That's all
Theresa
from
May
us
for the
here
time
at
being.
Paul on Politics. Thanks to our guests for coming into the studio. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, catch up with all the latest political news by following me on Twitter at Paul on Politics. See you soon.